Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today we will be discussing the very somber topic of the Fukushima nuclear disaster. We will discuss the events that led up to the disaster at Fukushima, the disaster itself, and the nightmare that has ensued ever since. We will also touch on why the media has been all but silent on this subject when millions are affected by it, and what can be done to mitigate the effects. So first, we will discuss the day of the disaster for a moment, and then a curious anomaly that happened a few days before the disaster that leads me to believe that there is something more to this story than we are being told. The disaster happened on March 11th, 2011. It was caused by a massive earthquake, which then caused a massive tsunami, which caused the disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This unfortunate sequence of events caused the worst nuclear power plant accident in history. This accident has allowed radioactive materials that will remain radioactive for up to 220,000 years to sink into the water table and pollute the Pacific Ocean. Now, we'll quickly talk about that curious anomaly that we mentioned a moment ago. 4 days before the accident, on March 7th of 2011, TEPCO, which is the Tokyo Electric and Power Company, submitted a report to Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency, which predicted the possibility of a tsunami at the Fukushima Daiichi plant that could reach up to 10 meters high in the event of a large earthquake. This report had been produced several years before and had been sitting on someone's desk since 2008. Later on, TEPCO would go on to say that they had delayed submitting the report because they did not feel like action was needed immediately. Now, I don't know about you, but this kind of raises a massive red flag in my mind. What are the odds that just happen to say that, hey, today's the day that we're going to submit that old report that's been sitting on Joe's desk for 3 years, and 4 days later, just so happens that it's the biggest nuclear catastrophe of all time? Do you really think that they had no idea that there would be a problem in the next few days? Do you think that they didn't know that earthquake would happen on the 11th? Do you think it was a random coincidence that it was submitted 4 days before the very same scenario unfolded that was in the report? If you do, I have this bridge I'm trying to sell really, really cheap. Anyway, coincidence or not, they submitted the report 4 days later. A massive 9.0 earthquake hit off the coast of Honshu Island at 2:46 local time. Just as imagined in the report that was conveniently submitted 4 days earlier, the earthquake caused a massive tsunami. So let's take a look at the events of that day and the days following the disaster. Before we do, though, I want to preface it with a quick statement about radiation and dosage. The report I am reading from measures radiation in sieverts. Now, there are many ways to measure radiation and exposure, and you may have heard of some. Some are called becquerels, sieverts, rads, or grays. They are all very valid ways of measuring radiation, but this report uses sieverts, and I wanted you to know that the lethal dosage of sieverts is 8 sieverts. 1 sievert will make you sick, but you can recover. If you absorb 8 sieverts in a short period of time, you will die. Period. There is nothing that can be done to stop that. So with that knowledge, let's move on to the events. On Friday, March 11th, 2011, at 2:46 p.m. local time, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake strikes off the coast of Honshu Island at a depth of about 24 kilometers, or about 15 miles deep. The Fukushima Daiichi power plant's nuclear reactors 1, 2, and 3 are automatically shut down by this tremor. Reactors 4, 5, and 6 were undergoing routine maintenance and were not operating at the time. The tremor had the additional effect of causing the power plant to be cut off from the Japanese electricity grid. However, backup diesel generators did kick in to continue the cooling. At 2:52, the Reactor 1's emergency cooling system, which is capable of running without external power, turns on automatically. At 3:27 local time, the first tsunami strikes the plant. At 3:30, the emergency condenser designed to cool the steam inside the pressure vessel of the number 1 reactor fails. At 3:46, a 14-meter or 46-foot tsunami unleashed by the earthquake overtops the seawall designed to protect the plant from a tsunami, and it inundates the Fukushima facility, thereby disabling the backup generators, and all but one of which were housed underground, and washing away their fuel tanks. With the loss of all electrical power supply, the low-pressure core spray, the residual heat removal, and low-pressure coolant injection and system main pumps, and the automatic depressurization systems all failed. Only the steam-powered pump systems on Reactor 1, the pressure coolant injection and reactor core isolation cooling system in Reactors 2 and 3 remained available. A subsequent investigation would later reveal that the isolation condenser units had not been tested or operated in over 40 years. As a result of the explosions and the subsequent meltdowns in 3 reactors, this nuclear accident has dumped 300 tons of radioactive material into the Pacific Ocean each day since, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Since the radiation began leaking into the Pacific Ocean, there has been a massive die-off of many of the species in the Pacific Rim. It is particularly noticeable on the west coast of North America, where the animals have been dying in beachings and have washed ashore with the signs of radiation poisoning. There are many people who have noticed that the coral reefs are nearly gone along the west coast. The tidal pools are empty, and surfers and divers who were the first to notice these things have raised the alarm because they spend so much time in the water. Divers in particular, because they spend most of their time beneath the surface of the waves and often scouring the ocean floor. YouTuber and activist Kevin Blanch has been studying the West Coast die-off and especially the tidal pools from Southern California and San Diego all the way up past Los Angeles. What he has found is devastation. The tidal pools are almost totally empty. Other than the random starfish, he cannot find any of the mussels, clams, crabs, seaweed, and kelp. He has walked from San Diego all the way to Malibu, and he has found complete and utter devastation. He has documented these findings on his YouTube channel, Kevin Blanch. If you want to see detailed information on his research and what he has found, go and visit Kevin Blanch on YouTube. So now that we have a basic understanding of what is happening, let's talk about the measures that have been tried or suggested to deal with this on a long-term basis. As we saw in previous clips, the first approach was to fill it all in with concrete. This would have taken care of the leaks from the top, but the worst leaks at the bottom, where it is leaking into the Pacific Ocean, would not be affected. To that end, they decided to build an ice wall all the way around the reactors. This wall was built in 2015, but they was not able to stop the hidden cracks that were allowing the flow to reach the ocean. In addition, in late 2015, there was a typhoon that damaged the ice wall. Due to the damage from the typhoon, the ice wall is now leaking an estimated 400 tons of water being released into the Pacific each day. This water is contaminated with radioisotopes and radioactive materials. This signals that the Pacific will continue to die off even faster now, and there is no foreseeable way to stop any of this in the future. We are basically out of options, and we are allowing 400 tons of contaminated water to enter the Pacific Ocean each day unchecked. In conclusion, we must ask ourselves once again, why are there no politicians talking about this? Why are we letting the contaminated ocean water to flow directly into our ocean and over to our coast and destroy our fisheries, beaches, reefs, and more? Why are we letting rainstorms that pick up this contaminated water over the Pacific Ocean and dump it on the west coast go unchecked? Why are people not sounding the alarm from every rooftop? The answer is simple. Most people are sheep and they are asleep. They believe that since it is not on the news, it is not a big deal. They believe that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Meanwhile, people are dying from aggressive cancers. People are measuring highly unsafe amounts of radiation on the West Coast and even further east. We see it in our milk across the country and other foods. We see it on our beaches, and people still swim in the same water that has poisoned almost all of the marine life in the whole Pacific. Until we can get people to wake up to the facts of what is going on, we will never be able to get to the truth. Thank you for watching, and we will be back soon with another insightful video. We appreciate all of your comments and all of your likes and subscriptions. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.